So Cheryl Reeve had absolutely no answer whatsoever in that game for Caitlin Clark. She had no answer whatsoever. And I'm going to explain now. You might be like, Caitlin Clark didn't have her best game. No. But there's a difference between like stopping her as an individual and stopping the Caitlin Clark system. And I will talk about it a little bit later in the like why Christy Sides just has a fundamental misunderstanding of the sport of basketball. But she stopped Caitlin Clark the person. She did not stop Caitlin Clark the system, as seen by a 10-point fourth quarter, where she dominated. She absolutely dominated. And not only that, she dominated, but also allowed Mitchell to dominate. She allowed Leah Boston to dominate. She allowed this team to dominate. And she could not stop the fever with that system. And obviously, if you know anything about basketball, the system is Clark. But before we get on, if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We are trying to 22,000 by the end of the day. Right now, we are 130 off. And as we could do it. We could actually do it, which is crazy. But Cheryl Reeve is the coach of the Minnesota Lynx. She is the USA coach. What she did today is the same problem Nate Tibbetts made. Sacrificed her best player to guard Caitlin Clark. And you saw in the fourth quarter, like through three quarters, the thing is like, I think Kayla McBride did an unbelievable job of guarding Caitlin Clark. I think she did a really good job of stopping Caitlin Clark. You saw Caitlin Clark shot the ball terribly. Like, you can stop Caitlin Clark, which they did. They did a really good job of stopping Caitlin Clark. 5 of 17 from the field. But if you saw late in that game, as soon as the tempo is picked up, if you try, again, Kayla McBride shot equally as bad. Kayla McBride was 4 of 14. Like, she also shot 2 of 10 from 3. Caitlin Clark was 2 of 11. Like, they were as bad as each other. They were as bad as each other on offense. Kayla McBride, the offensive superstar all-star, became a defender who just couldn't hit a shot. Just like what happened with Kat Copper with Nate Tibbetts the first time they played. If you are a coach, you actually cannot do that. That is a terrible style. It is a terrible way of trying to stop Caitlin Clark, because your job isn't about stopping Caitlin Clark. Your job is getting the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands. And they did a really good job of that, and Christy Sides also did a really good job of that. And that's the only way you can kind of like stop Caitlin Clark. But if you look at the way that she coached this game today, she coached the game to not let Caitlin Clark score. And that is not how you coach against a player like Clark. You gotta slow her down early. Like, you gotta do what Nate Tibbetts did to start the game. Like, it's not about stopping Caitlin Clark. It's about stopping her, making her make tough decisions. And Christy Sides, through 3 quarters, Christy Sides stopped Caitlin Clark. Like, if you watch this game, the positions that Caitlin Clark was being put in, it wasn't being forced by Minnesota. It was being forced by Indiana's coach. Like, Indiana's own coach stopped her own player, which is something I don't think I've ever seen before in basketball, but it happened. It happened. I don't know how it happened, but it happened. That Christy Sides stopped her own player from scoring. But again, it is what it is. Like, it's not the end of the world. But as soon as the fourth quarter hit, and you were watching that game, it just, like, it should have clicked that it's like, okay, she couldn't deal with her. And if you are a coach of a basketball team, and you are the coach and you're watching back on this game, the reason why you lost that game, if you want to be like delusional and you want to be like a basketball coach 10 years ago, you can say, oh, we lost that game because Kelsey Mitchell heated up. You know, they made some plays down the stretch. Caitlin Clark assist to, got a huge assist to Leah Boston. I think she might have gotten an assist to Kelsey Mitchell as well for a 3 in the fourth quarter. And then she also got, obviously, a massive assist to Leah Boston. She broke Kayla McBride's ankles getting, she broke her ankles getting the ball to, give them a lead. They got the first lead of the game, 67 to 65, was all Caitlin Clark breaking Kayla McBride's ankles. So you're just there, and you're like, you have to respect what Caitlin Clark can do even in that fourth quarter. But I felt it's a really poor coaching performance, and I feel like a lot of teams are making really poor coaching performances because they're coaching backwards basketball. They are trying to stop the player. Like, you're trying to stop Caitlin Clark scoring, and you're thinking, if Caitlin Clark doesn't have a good statistical game, we've done a good job on her. But in reality, if you suddenly see Kelsey Mitchell dropping 20 points in a quarter, or not 20 points a quarter, like 8 or 9 points in a quarter, and you're seeing Kelsey Mitchell just all of a sudden absolutely cooking you, then you haven't done a good job. I'm telling you, that is a big problem, is that you have not done a good job. And you might think you've done a good job because Caitlin Clark's shooting stats are down, but you didn't stop the system. You didn't stop Caitlin Clark the system. You stopped Caitlin Clark the player. You did not stop Caitlin Clark the system. And right now that system is almost unguardable. She had no answer for the system. We saw at the start of the third quarter when Indiana got some quick scores. Like, Minnesota were way better in the fourth quarter. She genuinely said, and she was like, our defense through most of the game should have been enough to win us the game, but it was our offense. The reality is that Christy Sides did not allow her team to play a successful brand of offensive basketball. Christy Sides was the reason you were in that game, and when Christy Sides decided to let her team run, over. That's all I'm going to say. As soon as Christy Sides decided, like, that she was going to run and let this team play, over. And if you're a coach, you got to see this. Like, as much as she's the most anti-Caitlin Clark coach there is. She is the most anti-Caitlin Clark. She is literally tweeting negative stuff about Caitlin Clark. She is the most anti-Caitlin Clark coach in this entire league. But you got to watch that game. You got to respect her. And by the way, Caitlin Clark was not even the best player on her team. Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell were both better today. Kelsey Mitchell on defense, that weak side block, the way that she was their best player. Alexi Hull I thought was brilliant today. I thought Katie Lou played well. But like, Caitlin Clark was not their best player today. It was one of Kelsey Mitchell or Aaliyah. Genuinely, it was one of those two. But you just got to say that those two both play way better in the run and gun Caitlin Clark system. And in that system, when you've put too much focus on Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah kills you. Kelsey kills you. And you've got an incredibly unselfish player in Caitlin Clark who's not even only finding them, who is willing, who doesn't give a damn about the assists, who's not throwing assist passes. She'll hit the short roll. Sometimes an assist, sometimes a hockey assist. If you include hockey assists, she probably had 14 in that game. And in the fourth quarter, the game went through her. You couldn't guard her. You could not guard her. And that is where, if you are Cheryl Reeve, you go back to the drawing board. That is where you rethink your idea of the sport of basketball. Where you have to just think and you're like, this is what we went out to do. It was a completely wrong game plan. She talks about her team going out and playing really good defense. Not only did she sacrifice her best offensive player, so did Christy Sides. Christy Sides also sacrificed her offensive system that's winning her games to try slow the game down and play the Damiris Dantas style of basketball. Because we've seen Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston excel in the run and gun. It's not even the Aaliyah Boston style of basketball. I call it what it is. It's the Damiris Dantas style of basketball. She's the only player in this team that benefits from the slow down play. And yeah, it was just horrible coaching from Christy Sides. But you can see as the game went on, there was no plan B. Once the Fever started running at Minnesota, once they started playing the high pick and roll. And the reason why the high pick and roll is so effective is that Caitlin goes downhill a lot to the right off that high pick and roll. And what she's able to do really well is split the defenders. So unless you completely blitz that screen, and she's gotten better at going through the blitzes. If you soft hedge that screen, she splits the defenders, gets it to Aaliyah Boston the short roll, and Aaliyah Boston's getting really good when it comes to decision making. She's dribbling in. She's not taking dumb shots anymore. She's going in, she's either taking the layup if she can get it, and if she can't get it, she's looking for the dump down to another post player that's in there, and if not, she's looking for Katie Lou on the wing. She's looking for Kelsey Mitchell in the corner. And so many times the ball will get swung to Katie Lou on the wing. Bang! Down one more to Kelsey Mitchell in the corner. They shot terribly. The Indiana Fever, but the system was unguardable. And the fact is that there was not one defensive change made in that fourth quarter while they got basket after basket after basket after basket on you. Just because of a stylistic change from Christy Sides. Your team's defense was not good in this game. Christy Sides' offense was just even worse. Your team's defense was not good. And if she looks back and thinks anything different in the post game, then she's lying to herself. If she thinks anything different than that style of play, like, holy crap, she's lying to herself. Like, the Liberty play a sort of style of play like this, and like, if you put her in as the Liberty's point guard instead of Sloot, the Liberty would not lose a game. If you put the right matchups in, if you have the right matchups in with Caitlin Clark, or the right teammates with Caitlin Clark, it's unguardable. And no matter what she wants to say as the Team USA coach, no matter what she wants to say, she messed up badly. She messed up badly not bringing Caitlin Clark. Because if you imagine she would just have to sit back. She would have to sit back, kick her feet up, and just go, play everybody else. We play defense. Asia, run. You're going to score 30 a game. If we slow down, dude, just run a pick and roll, or just get the ball to Asia and you can spot up. You're cool. But in transition, or even when Asia's off the floor, now, you have a lineup where, I don't know, your bench lineup, you've got freaking Ionescu, Clark. You have Ka Copper running the floor. You've got defenders. And you're like, even if you want to just run through Asia Wilson at the start, it means that when Asia Wilson is not on the floor, you suddenly just have to kick your feet up and like, we're going to run and just score every possession. Every time we get a stop, we're going to score a possession. We got these players beside Kate, and all they have to do is run and catch the ball, and they're going to score. So she made a horrible decision. Whether she knows it or not, she made a horrible decision. And even in a bad game for Caitlin Clark, Caitlin did not play well today. The system that she allows you to play is scarily effective.